New Brunswickers vote on October 21st, and today party leaders were out selling their promises on week 2 of the election campaign.
We will create a therapeutic living unit at the new provincial jail in Minto, ensuring that individuals involved in the justice system due to addiction receive treatment that addresses the root cause of their struggles.
We need a proper province-wide school breakfast and lunch program in place to ensure that teachers can focus on what they do best, teaching, and students can focus on learning.
Proud to be the first to have a full team of 49 exceptional candidates standing with their names on ballots across the province, and the first to release a full platform.
I'm joined now by our panel of New Brunswick election analysts. Jeff Carr is a former New Brunswick PC minister under Blaine Higgs. Nicole Pico was Deputy Minister of Finance for the New Brunswick Liberal government under Brian Gallant. And Amanda Wildeman previously served as the New Brunswick Green Party's Chief of Staff. It's good to see you all again. Thanks for coming back. Jeff, let's start with you. When we spoke last week, right after the first that sounds like a doorbell going off. Right after the first leaders debate, Higgs was largely on the defensive. Now we're hearing that he has declined an invitation to appear in an October 9th debate hosted by Rogers. What do you make of this choice?
Well, I just first read about that this morning, so I'm really not sure what the reasoning is. I'm not close enough to the campaign to know. What I do know about debates, and what I said last week about debates, is that I think most people have their mind made up that watch them. I think in New Brunswick, I would say most people are familiar with the three leaders. They've been hearing what they have to say. I can only speculate that maybe Blaine doesn't have the time in his calendar to do it. I don't know, but it is a little different. I think most times most leaders go to all the debates. So,
well, yeah, Nicole, that's my experience. Typically, if there's major debates in a provincial election, you take it. So, what conclusions, if any, can we draw from the fact that Blaine Higgs is not participating in this one, and will it even go ahead without him?
Well, I can only, like Jeff, I can only speculate. If I were advising Higgs, I would suggest that strongly that he do the debate. I think, regardless of people making up their minds, still may glean something interesting from a debate. But on the reverse side of that, it's also an opportunity for folks to stumble. So. But I can tell you that I truly believe that Susan Holt is ready and willing and able to take on another debate.
Well, I mean, Amanda, it was the Liberals who put it out on social media that they're willing to go and Blaine Higgs isn't willing to go. So what do you make of this, the fact that the PC leader has decided October 9th is a no-go for him?
Well, whenever a decision like this kind of comes out, my mind immediately tends to go to the fact that they maybe did some new internal polling and realized that after the last debate, it didn't do him any favors. So that's total speculation off the top of my head, but that's where my mind goes there. Well, we kind of all concluded last time that everyone did reasonably well. Yeah, he was on the defensive the whole time, trying to defend his record, and he's choosing to run a one promise campaign, and it's really hard to debate one promise over and over for 45 minutes. So yeah. I guess you can only say that so many times. Yeah,
and look, and when we say he was on the defensive, I don't mean he was being defensive. It's just he's the incumbent, he's the premier, he's seeking re-election, and so that's why his record was being put to the test. So part of that, Jeff, is we know he's not going to do at least this debate as of right now, but they are talking about launching yet another legal challenge against the federal carbon tax. Now, this is something the Supreme Court has ruled on, so I don't know if Blaine Higgs has a new legal argument to make or if this is just rehashing an old political argument. What do you make of this move and its significance in this campaign?
Well, I think everybody in Canada understands when you say carbon tax, it's a bad. And it relates to, people relate to it. So to bring it up again and to try to use it again is a strategy that most conservative parties go with. I'm not 100% sure that the electorate understand the process when it goes when you go to the Supreme Court. Nor do I know if they understand the history on what our government has done with the carbon tax since we were elected in 2018. So it is a play that I see he's trying to make. I'm not sure where it'll go. As far as his advice, the Attorney General, the current Attorney General, would have had to did the research and say, yes, we have a challenge here, or we have an opportunity. So we'll see how that plays out. In saying all that, though, in 1 year from now, and just a little over 1 year from now, if everything goes as the polls are showing and federally, Pierre Poilievre is going to be the Prime Minister of Canada, and that tax is promised to go away anyhow. So I'm not sure the hearing will even happen in a year's time. I don't know what the timeline is on that. I'm sure it doesn't happen right away, but it's going to happen regardless.
So Nicole, though, like, as Jeff says, the Attorney General would have had to have been involved if the government was doing this, but it's not being announced it's being announced while the government's in caretaker mode, right? During an election campaign, not while, while things are functioning as normal. So what do you make of the timing of this? Is this just an election move, or is there a serious new legal argument underpinning this potentially?
Well, I'm not a lawyer. I certainly do think it's an election play for sure. Higgs seems terrifically focused on Ottawa these days when the issues are really back here at home. Well, we're hearing at the doors about healthcare and affordability. One could argue that the carbon tax is an affordability issue for sure, but don't forget that Higgs decided that we should pay an additional 4 cents a liter at the pumps for the carbon adjuster mechanism, which really should have been paid by the gas refineries. So there's I think a lot of politicking going on here, and I have to say I thought the torqued rhetoric from Mr. Poilievre yesterday was rather entertaining on that whole issue. So
right, he did raise this in question period, right? Mr. Poilievre did, as he's been raising similar concerns by the Saskatchewan Conservative government, and they just happen to be in an election. It's like there's some coordination going on. Amanda, what do you make of this move by Blaine Higgs to announce another potential challenge of the carbon tax?
I mean, I think it's a distraction. His campaign is not going well, and kind of. The One Promise campaign is, like I said, is probably not going the way he anticipated it would. So it is a distraction, and we are losing sight of why these mechanisms even exist. We are currently living on a warming planet. The effects of climate change are more and more real every single season that we live. In 2023, Canada spent over $3 billion in the after effects of different climate disasters across the country. That's an absurd amount of money. So we can either spend money after the fact, or we can really get smart about what we're doing. And the problem here in New Brunswick, as Nicole just said, is that instead of passing on what he was supposed to do to the refineries and the largest emitters, Higgs chose to protect his friends and sent it onto the backs of New Brunswickers. And so he's trying to, it's a political play to kind of show he's trying to stick it to the man, if you will, when that's not at all what he's actually doing.
Right. So just to clarify, when you say this is a One Promise campaign, you're talking about the HST cut, the 2 percentage points off the HST. That's the centerpiece of their platform, right? That's what you're referring to. That's the centerpiece
of their platform. That's how they've wrapped their bus. That's every postcard from the candidates, every ad that's online. That's all. If that's all I'm mostly hearing, and I'm actually actively trying to learn more, I suspect that's all that people who are not paying attention are.
So Jeff, when we spoke last week, you talked about you're a conservative. Whenever you can cut taxes, that's what you want to focus on in a campaign, and that's a policy generally you support. But there's always the challenges in campaigns when candidates do something that maybe distract from the core message. And we kind of had an example of that with Sherry Wilson, the PC candidate who was the minister responsible for women's equality in the Higgs government. And had this social media post saying that their policy on pronouns and trans kids in schools would protect people from the sort of ills we saw with the residential school system. And she did this on the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. There's some blowback there. Is it just, is that a contained issue, or is that something that could become a big deal throughout this campaign?
Well, let me first start by saying that there's nothing in this country that should be compared to the residential schools tragedy that happened many years ago. There still is so many open wounds from it, and I don't know if they were ever healed, but posts like this comparing them isn't helpful. I don't know if it will stick. There's different things that have happened in the past. I see people calling for Sherry to be pulled from the ballot. I've seen people ask her to resign. There is recent history on candidates, having a little hiccup and saying things they shouldn't say through in campaigns from both major parties. We recently, in the last election, saw Roland Michaud in Grand Falls have to remove himself from as a PC candidate for sharing a Facebook meme, a homophobic meme. And then in 2014, I believe it was, Andrew Harvey removed himself as a Liberal candidate. He won and then joined the Liberal caucus. So whether this will stick or not, I don't know. Removing Sherry as a PC candidate, I don't think hurts her chances in Albert County. But it's certainly not a distraction that I think leader wants to try to wade himself through at this point in time.
Yeah, Nicole, what do you see the impact of this one on the campaign?
I obviously you don't want that kind of thing happening during a campaign, as Jeff rightly points out. This was particularly egregious on the day that we are to be recognizing Truth and Reconciliation and the spirit of that. It was pretty tone deaf and I think enormously regrettable. Will it have a huge impact on her riding and her position? I don't think so, but it just ticks on another box in terms of the Higgs ideology coming through, and I think that's concerning for a lot of New Brunswickers.
All right, Amanda, we're just about out of time to give you the last word on this one.
I mean, I agree with what's been said. It shows the complete lack of understanding by Higgs and his team of what truth and reconciliation truly means. It was Green MLA Megan Mitten, or former MLA for Memramcook Tantramar, now candidate for Tantramar, who first saw this and called it out this time. And a reminder that last year another Higgs candidate made a very similar comparison, Fatine. It was about a year ago. It backs up a lot of what we're seeing on the campaign and what we've been hearing over the past 8 years from Indigenous leaders, that Higgs and government and his government have no concept of what truth and reconciliation really means, and so therefore they can't walk a path to creating a better nation-to-nation relationship with the First Peoples of our province.
Okay, we're out of time, but 2.5 weeks just about to go in your election. Jeff Carr, Nicole Pico, Amanda Wilderman, good to see you. We'll talk again next week.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.